Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel or the podcast, however you're listening. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I have a very special guest, a fellow YouTube musician, vocal coach. We have
Yeah,
Jennifer Glatzhofer here today. Thank you so much, Jennifer, for taking the time.
that is all right. I'm so excited.
Yes. Now, I introduced you as a vocal coach, but also I said musician. Are you a musician as well? That might have been a bluff on my part.
That's all right. No, so I want to call myself a singer, musical theatre performer first. I think that's kind of the title for me, I
Okay.
guess. On YouTube, there is a lot of reactions.
Sure.
I found a little path there, doing reactions and talking about the voice. I think, that's something I really enjoy. So wherever I'm talking about the voice, that's something I really enjoy. But yeah, singer, performer would be something is what I put at the top.
Perfect. So, for the people that are not familiar with your channel and who you are as a singer and performer, can you give a little bit? Can you give a little bit of backstory?
Of myself? Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
absolutely.
So I have always liked performing, being up on stage, kind of getting into a character. So that's where like the
Hmm.
musical theatre side of things comes out. I was always in like drama productions at school, um, theatre productions outside of school as well, like clubs and clubs like that. So yeah, I wanted to continue with that and continue my studying. So I went to university musical theatre, carried that on for 3 years. Then I wanted to continue with that, so I did 1 year in London. Um, and since then, I'm kind of like in the industry auditioning, and I was like, well, what else can I do? I didn't want to do anything that wasn't music related.
Mm.
So I started singing, teaching, started use things on YouTube kind of picked up as well. So over on YouTube, I kind of focus more on reactions, kind of posting covers, and again, like I mentioned before, kind of just nerding out about the voice. That's what I love to do. So anything like that.
Yeah, that's I love that. It's a very similar story actually, very to myself.
Yeah,
Just kind of discovering YouTube and everything like that. But let's talk about you mentioned 3 years of university and then 1 year
yeah,
in London. So where are you
yeah.
originally? Where did you originally study and where are you originally from?
So I born and went to grew up in Hertfordshire, which is north of London.
Okay, so it's still in the UK.
Then still in the UK, yeah. So I know maybe the surname's confusing people, but so UK. Then 3 years of university, I went to Colchester, so that's Essex. Then I was like, "Oh, I just want something in the heart of West End and like musical. So I was like, let me do something in London, so I feel even more involved. That's when I went to London and did a year there. So that was, I think I finished in 2018.
Very cool. So
Mhm.
in your studies, you know, I'm a college dropout. I would love to hear your perspective on university and if it helped you, if you looking back would not have done it. And there's no wrong or right answer to this. I'm just super curious because everybody has a different answer. Like for example, like
Yeah.
some great musicians like John Mayer and Charlie Puth went to these huge universities, and then some
Yeah.
didn't. So I'm super curious on your perspective on how university shaped you in your career.
So I went to university straight after finishing. I went to sixth form, which is kind of like college. So 18, I went straight away to university. So I didn't have a gap year or anything. So yeah, I was quite young. There were a few people older than me there, but otherwise everyone else was 18 as well. And I'm a very independent person, so I kind of felt like I was there and I was independent. I was away from home, learning everything. I felt like it was kind of where I was meant to be. But then when I finished, I was like, I'm not done.
Hmm.
And I still felt like I needed to do more. So it was definitely a good grounding kind of experience where I learned the basics and like it pushed me to where I wanted to go. But I felt like there was, and even now, obviously, I'm going to still continue grow and learn. But I was like, I just needed to do another year. But yeah, no, I wouldn't take any of that learning back. Like it was definitely something that I needed. I felt like I wanted to
Hmm.
do, and it also allowed me to realize that actually this could be a career, right? So because obviously before it's kind of like do a drama club, sing like hobby, kind of like then do this. I mean, I've got really supportive parents. They're really, really lovely. But it was like, oh, is it always just something that I'm putting on the side, or can I actually put it as my main focus? And then having that as a kind of like degree, what I'm doing every single day and learning and training, I was like,
Hmm.
oh, this is what I'm meant to be doing. So
Ah, I love
that's
that.
very much needed. Mm.
I love that. That is really cool. I appreciate that perspective for sure, and I appreciate the fact that your parents were very supportive of that. Mine were as
Yeah.
well. They were concerned at first when I was like dropping into college to do music, and then when I proved like, hey, I'm like actually serious about this. I'm not just sitting on the couch, eating potato chips every day,
Yeah.
or I'm actually like out there trying to get gigs and trying to write music and all
Yeah.
that. Like they were like, okay, as long as you're working, like we're happy for you, kind of thing. So
Yeah.
I would love to know what kind of steps. What is a day in the life look of somebody that is continuing to build a career in the musical theater industry? Like what do you do on the day to day? What do you do, to continue to further that career?
Well, fine. At the moment, obviously things have been a bit quiet, theatre-wise,
Sure.
music-wise, entertainment-wise. But finding classes like to keep up any sort of skills areas, like a dance class, a
Mm,
singing class. I take like master classes as well. Even though I'm a singing teacher, I will also take classes myself just to kind of
sure.
keep working on my own because I am like in the industry as well. I want to keep bettering myself. And I think, like I mentioned before, we have to obviously make an income somehow
Sure.
whilst trying to uh, pursue that dream. And I've always been someone that doesn't want to do anything that's like not related to music. I want to stick to that as much as I can. So it's kind of building what kind of like from like one student I had, and then from there I had two, then three, then four. So it kind of grew and grew, and I just was like, I don't want to do anything else. I'm going to keep building, keep building, keep building. YouTube came as well, which has been really, really lovely. I'm also in a band like on the weekend, so it's kind of like
Oh, cool.
anything that I can do that's performing wise to keep like an income to then pay for headshots, to then pay for classes. That's kind of like every day. That's in the forefront, I guess, and that's
Yeah,
how I kind of
absolutely.
plan my
And
weeks.
reinvesting all that money into the future of what you want to do. I very
Yeah,
much relate to
yeah,
that. I love that. So, what kind of band are you in on the weekends? Is it like a cover band, a wedding band, or your original
yeah.
band?
Both. So yeah, wedding cover band. So we do a lot of functions like weddings, birthdays, anniversaries, parties, like anything like that. And then sometimes we might do like the occasional public event as well for obviously friends and families to come down.
Oh,
So
that's
yeah, it's
fun.
really good fun.
That's great. So let's talk about YouTube. When did you discover YouTube, and how did you get involved in that?
Yeah, so I started, please do not go and look. I started back in like 2012. Yeah. So I was in um sixth form. I think I was like 16, 17, and I was like, let me just pop up my camcorder. This is my parents' old camera. Sat down, played the guitar, and sang a little song. Put it up. Well, I think I used Windows Movie Maker to
Hmm.
edit. It's really bad. And yeah, I just kind of kept making videos like that, putting up songs. Then I was like, oh, I want to start kind of talking because I went into like a few little vlogs and stuff as well because I
Oh,
kind of
cool.
liked editing. I kind of liked putting things together, and I wanted to continue so that when I went to uni, I had something to look back at as well.
I
Had a
love
little like
that.
memory.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
love
and I
that.
and I do sometimes like sit and just watch old things. Like, "Ah, remember that time? So that's kind of the intention that I had, and then obviously things got quite busy during university. That then meant that uploading kind of was a little bit became few. Like it wasn't as consistent. So then I think it was 2019 where it kind of I was like, no, I really want to kind of focus on this again. And then obviously the pandemic, began, and I was like, right, okay, maybe I'm going to start really focusing on it this time. So yeah, then that's when the songs kind of came up, and it wasn't until I had a masterclass, like a business masterclass with someone, and they mentioned the reactions videos, and I was
Interesting.
like, "Ugh," I was like, can I like what can I say that someone else hasn't said before? Like, who am I? Kind of, that type of conversation you have in your head. What can I bring? But yeah, I just went for it, and obviously found my passion in talking about the voice, which I love.
Hmm.
So yeah, that wasn't until early last year.
Wow, very cool.
Reactions, yeah.
So, where have you seen the growth? Has it been a steady growth slowly since 2012, or have you seen like big jumps in certain years? Or
Definitely big jumps since like last year.
sure, I think a lot of
But
people.
yeah, yeah, I think having that kind of reaction helps because it brings like other fans and stuff. Uh, Yeah, so that's been really, really good. But even just having that consistent upload from a year before, I could see like a steady growth of people that were interested in what I was doing. So that was nice.
I absolutely agree with that, and we have very similar stories actually. In the fact that I likewise started my channel in 2012 ish,
Yeah.
I think 2012, 2013. But it was like every once in a while I'd throw a random cover up there, or when I did an original song I'd throw it up there. But it wasn't
Yeah.
until 2019 that I actually really started getting serious about it. And then because I was serious, I'm really grateful for this actually, because I was already serious about it. I had the framework for when 2020 hit, that I was like
Mm,
really able to go hard and like be like have this opportunity,
yeah.
which was really, really cool. So I would love to talk about this actually. So you started a YouTube channel, even with the reaction videos, like they do very well now. But do you
Hmm.
remember those first couple of, videos or dozen videos, 100 videos, however many videos you do? Like, I look at some of these other channels and I recall like, oh my gosh, remember when, our videos would get 10 views, 20 views, 30 views, and like we still had the drive to keep going, and
Yeah.
I would kind of like to love to talk about that, because I think so,
Hmm.
there it could be really encouraging to starting off channels, because I wish that I had that somebody to be like, oh, if he says that he remembers that kind of thing, there's nobody to look up to, so I would love to hear that.
Yeah, like can I keep going and just
Exactly.
make the next one? Um, yeah, I mean it's always gonna kind of be a little bit like, oh, I really enjoyed that. No, 10 views. But I think I remember hearing something like that's 10 people or 10 views that you have actually people have taken the time to watch your content, what you've made, which is huge. And it's just, you're talking about if you found something that you're talking about and you love it and you want to, it's something that you're really passionate about, that shouldn't stop you. You should just continue
Mm.
making that because that's gonna be that drive, and that definitely was the drive for me. So I was like, well, I've got so much more. Let's just keep going and see what happens.
Yeah, and I very much agree with that. If you love what you do, that's the only thing that's going to keep you going. The views aren't going to keep you, like, if you start just doing things just for the views, like, because there's a
Exactly,
lot
yeah.
of content that you and I could put out there that we know will get the views, but if we don't enjoy doing that, that's really going to lead to burnout really
Yeah.
quickly.
Yeah, yeah, you're gonna have to enjoy what you're talking about because then you can keep going. And like I said, like, I mean I struggle with sometimes putting too much into one video, but then if you've got too much to say, you could split it into
Sure.
more videos, and then you've got more videos to post out, and then like more ideas and more kind of like spider webs and ideas to kind of make. But yeah, no, it definitely it's hard not to focus on the numbers, and like sometimes you'll have those days, and it's like, oh, man, but you've just got to keep
Sure.
going. I think, like, acknowledge that thought and be like, okay, let me just work on the next one and just see what happens.
Yeah. Or take it as a learning opportunity. Be like, I'm curious why this one didn't do well, but don't let your identity be attached to that,
Yeah. Yeah, it's
because
nothing to do like with who you are as a person, kind of like it's just what happened that time. Do you know what I mean? It's just nothing to
YouTube
do
is
with
so
that. Yeah,
strange too
it's so
sometimes.
strange.
So, what are some of
Yeah.
your favorite kind of videos to make? If we talk even reaction videos, who are some of your favorite artists to check out?
Oh my goodness. I had a lot of people asking me to do like a cappella reactions, like voice play, home free, pentatonics. I heard of pentatonics before, but I hadn't heard of home free or voice play. And I noticed that they were quite popular in like Halloween, Christmas. So I
Hmm.
was like, okay, but I think this was like summer, and I was like, okay, let me just wait because I don't. Well, maybe I should wait until especially voice play. And then it came along, it changed my life. I was like, this is so good. I was like, wow. And then my love for like again, it's music, singing, but I was like, oh, I really want to be in an a cappella group now. And I've started noticing some people go, Jen, have you thought about starting your a cappella group? I was like, well, let me get some people over and we'll start jamming to like a cappella wise. But no, that's definitely like the a cappella groups have been like a highlight of like, of something that I found
Yeah,
really interesting and I've listened to not just reaction wise, but listened to for myself for sure.
that's really cool. I really appreciate that. Now, did you only find them because people had requested them?
Yeah, so voice play and home free. I hadn't heard of them before, and it wasn't until people had
Yeah,
asked me to use them.
that's pretty cool. It's a very similar story. Like a lot of the artists that I enjoy now, like only came from recommendations. To some degree, it's also kind of cool because like you have this curated group of people that know to some degree what you from watching your videos. They see what you do
Yeah.
and you don't pick up on, what you do and you don't like. So then they could be like, hey, if you like this, I think you'll like this, and then you're like, oh
Yeah, and
wow,
they actually,
you're
yeah,
right.
they put time and effort into thinking, oh, actually, you like this, so I'm going to give you this, and I'm like, oh, thank you, I do actually like this, so
Yeah,
it's really nice. Yeah.
that's cool. How much of your content do you get from the comments section?
Oh, it kind of varies. Sometimes, like, I'll have my list going on, and I need to. Sometimes I keep reminding myself, like, musical theatre is what I am, and probably what I can offer most, like, talk about, I guess, because of that of my training, right? So, like, technique wise, I can kind of bring that more in. So sometimes I'm like, I know people aren't really asking for this, but I'm like, I really like this, so I'm gonna do it.
Sure.
And like we were saying before, you've got to keep doing what you
Yeah.
love at the end of the day, right? You've got to keep pushing forward for that. But otherwise, there's like a select few that because I've seen they've comment really lovely comments on like, really supportive um, comments on my YouTube, like they leave in every kind of video, and I'm like, right, I want to do this for you because
Sure.
I appreciate you in the comments, and I love reading your comments. It really brightens up my day. So yeah, I'm gonna take a little suggestion from them, and I'll probably put that a little bit up in the list.
Sure. Do you have an actual handwritten list, or what is your list? Where is your list live?
So I say like spreadsheet, but I am very much a handwriting person. Like I've got notebooks upon notebooks, and I write everything down. Even like will have January and like put up what I need to put up, like when I'm filming what. So yeah, everything's kind of more written down, I guess.
I like. Are you a planner?
Yes. Can you
Hey,
tell?
I love that. So am I. And I don't know how some people do it without planning it out. Some people are,
Oh,
and
you
hey,
need to plan.
to each their own. Like everybody, functions in different ways. But especially creatives, they're like, oh, people think I swing by however that phrase goes, fly by the seat of my pants. But like,
Yeah.
I, do very much enjoy planning.
Yeah.
Although I
I
have
sometimes,
no, continue.
yeah.
Sorry.
I was gonna say sometimes like I'll be too focused in the planning and like making sure everything will fit in, and then I get like that those anxious kind of feelings. It's like, no, I
Sure.
planned this all through. I can do this. But yeah, I'm very much like writing down. I think even for today, I was like 7 a.m., 9
Oh, I love that. I
a.m.
love that.
Just to make sure I'm fitting everything in.
Oh, I thrive on that for sure. That's so fun. Um, I'm curious. I'd love to hear a little bit about your musical theater background and what you're interested in that. What are some of your favorite musical theaters? Let me give you actually a backstory to that question.
Yeah.
I personally thought that I hated musicals. Just because I
Ooh.
guess I don't know what, I just grew up, I guess, never being really introduced to them. And maybe the ones that I was introduced to, like, like in high school, like they take you to like the opera, and like I just wasn't interested in that kind of stuff, right? Or like,
Yeah.
you'd see like what's it called? What's that classic The Nutcracker, where like I was
Right.
suckered into seeing The Nutcracker for one of my friend's kids, and I didn't realize there was no speaking in the thing. So now you just have
Yeah.
all these people for 3 hours just dancing around doing. Look, and it was fun to see the kid, but like I just had all these experiences, and then somebody introduced me to Hamilton, and I really enjoyed it. Then I went into In the
Yeah.
Heights, and then I looked into Dear Evan Hansen, and like I started kind of
Hmm.
going down this path. I was like, oh, this stuff is really, even from a songwriter perspective, like myself, like
Yeah.
these are really well written songs, and they tell a really good story. So I would love to hear a
Yeah.
little bit of your backstory. And I don't know if I sound like a musical theater noob by mentioning Hamilton first, because I
Oh
feel
no,
like that's like
Hamilton's great.
the
Like it's
typical
quite
like,
a few.
oh,
Yeah, yeah, it's Hamilton, but it's quite a few people's kind of, especially now, introduction. And like,
mm,
what a great introduction. I mean,
mm-hmm,
Lin-Manuel Miranda, great
mm-hmm,
lyricist, so it's amazing. Yeah, especially contemporary music. I was kind of brought up more on like old classic musical theatre like Calamity Jane, Oklahoma, Seven Brides for Seven Brothers, like the Western types, and like West
mm,
Side Story. I know there's a new one, I haven't actually seen that. But the old West Side Story. Um, those are the ones I kind of grew up on, like My Fair Lady, like all these, and I just fell in love. I was like, wow, this is so cool. And I remember going to university and singing these classical musical theatre songs, and everyone kind of was bringing more contemporary things. Like, I mean,
mm.
Hamilton came out a few years later, I think my second year, but these more contemporary kind of feeling songs. And I was like, whoa, I'm more of a legit musical theatre singer. And I was then introduced to more of these kind of contemporary songs, such as In the Heights.
Hmm.
Actually, that was one of the ones there. Dear Evan Hansen came a bit later as well. I'm trying to think of something else. Heathers, like things like that, Legally Blonde, that I kind of heard of, but I just always thought, no, go back to my roots of like the classical kind
Sure, that's really
of
interesting.
musical theatre. But it really widened up like my knowledge to musical theatre and just how different. Like people think musical theatre, singing, dance, cheesy, but actually there's so much like so many different like areas of it. So many different kind of sections and just genres within musical theatre that
Hmm.
makes it so exciting. And yeah, I guess from the old musical theatre to contemporary, that's kind of like how the growth of my knowledge has grown as well, and like my passion for it.
Well, that's really fascinating. It's really interesting how you had this like pride for the older stuff, and then like you started to,
Yeah.
kind of be introduced to some of the newer stuff. That's really interesting. I would love to. Have you seen Tick Tick Boom on Netflix?
Yes, I have. Oh, get the tissues.
Yeah. So I don't know anything about it, or I know like very minimal. I've seen one
Hmm.
song, and then I heard that it's about the guy who did, I believe,
Rent.
Rent. Okay,
Yep,
yeah.
Rent.
It's is it his story, or
Yeah.
it's like a bio
So
autobiography kind of thing,
so
or
I like my facts are a bit like loose as well about this, but it's a musical concert that he wrote so that an earlier production, an earlier musical that he was writing, Suburbia, he was like wanting that to get big. Basically, he was giving that to producers, he was doing workshops for it, and he wrote this musical, this kind of concert about Suburbia, trying to get that out and kind of like the I don't want to say failure because it's just like it's one musical, like the steps of trying to get this musical out. So he wrote basically he was an amazing writer, and carried on writing music about his life. So yeah, it's before Rent came out, and it's his life beforehand and the struggles of a musician, as I'm sure you understand as well. So it was very like me and my boyfriend, he's also a musician, so we are both watching it. We were like, this is too close, too close
really?
to home. Yeah, like when you do watch it, you'll understand because you literally go. It goes through, you know, all the highs, all the lows of just trying to get his work out, right? And
Sure,
trying to be seen for the right people to see it, for the right people
sure.
to then get it to where he wants it to get to. But it's a fantastic piece, and obviously Lin Manuel directed it as well, so he's doing
Hmm.
great stuff.
Dude, this guy literally doesn't sleep. He's doing
No,
everything from all these Disney movies to his own
I
originals
know.
to direct. It's like, what does this guy have
Like,
65 hours in a day?
yeah, he's got way too many, but it's so good. Oh, and I saw that you've seen Encanto, I think, haven't you?
Yes, I just recently watched that. I went through all the songs and then I just recently watched it with my mom. It was fun. It was very
Very
fun.
good, so good.
Yes. Which he obviously had involved. And actually, I haven't announced this on my channel yet, but I actually, not that it was an announcement, but like I just recently saw Moana and saw Lynn's
Nice.
involvement in that. So I'm gonna
Yeah,
go
yeah.
into some of those songs actually on my channel soon too.
I like once you start knowing what his kind of
A
writing
hundred
is like,
percent.
you can hear it. You're
A
like,
hundred
this is
percent.
him. It's so good.
Absolutely. I have you seen Moana?
Yes, yeah.
Uh we have these friends where their daughter is 4 or 5 and she like loved Moana, like it was one of her favorite movies, and she
Yeah.
loved that song, and so I was like rehearsing all day and I was like, I am Moana from Montenegro,
Yeah.
and I was like, when I got this, because I just saw them recently, so I was like, hey, to the girl, I was like, guess what, and I just went through the whole thing and she was like so excited. It was fun. It was very fun.
No, yeah, no, it's so like I was teaching it to a group of like children for like singing lessons, and it's just such a fun one because everyone loves it,
Sure.
and it's very, I mean, it's very like speech singing as well. So it really,
Mm,
from a technical point of view, you're gonna get some great anchoring and support happening, and like growth happening there. But no, it's such a great, Moana, Encanto, all of that. Like they're all so great and
yeah.
contemporary. So it's really,
Yeah.
getting young children or new audiences into a musical theatre world, which obviously I love. So that's
Yeah,
good.
absolutely. That's actually really interesting because you're right. These animated Disney movies are really no different than going to see a musical like something like Rent or Chicago or any of that
Yeah,
stuff. It's actually a very similar concept, only it's animated and
especially
you're.
now. Yeah,
That's really fascinating. I would have never actually put those in the same category, but they totally all of the Disney movies, Mulan and all the ones I
yeah,
grew up, except for like Toy Story. There's not no singing in that, but like a
yeah,
lot of the princess movies and stuff were totally all based around singing, and then there would be talking
yeah.
scenes. That is so fascinating. I didn't realize that.
Yeah. No, and like especially the more like contemporary we get, the more modern we get with the Disney films, obviously a lot more um like topics about the world are a bit more like said in them. So like, the equality and like women and men in the roles. Let's just say
Hmm.
that. I don't want to get too much into this. But it's a lot more appropriate for what children want to watch, and then they can see their idols, kind of their characters, and like really look up to these characters and want to be like them because they
Hmm.
start seeing themselves and like diversity and all this. Again, this is getting like way big, but it's definitely like opened up a lot of doors and allowed musical theatre to kind of be a bit more everywhere for people to kind of see it and enjoy
Yeah.
it a bit more.
Yeah, that's a really interesting perspective. I would have never really classified it as before, but now that I'm like really thinking about it, it's like it totally is just an animated
Yeah.
musical theater. That is so interesting, and then especially when they bring because so many of them go on to Broadway, like
Yeah, I
Aladdin
mean
or
the
The Lion
yeah,
King or like so they totally
like
are
Beauty and
musical.
the Beast as well. So yeah, like I mean, have you seen any of these Disney musicals like on
I
stage?
have
Have you seen
not
any of them?
actually.
It's so like because obviously you see the animations, then it's like it's a talking, Beauty and the Beast, for example, like it's a talking clock or something. How are you going to do it? But they do it and they pull it off. Or like Lion King, like how are they going to do all the animals and stuff? And it's just so incredible. It's such it's a whole production, but yeah, it's so great and gets all the children involved. It's really nice.
Sure. Have you seen Lion King on Broad or on
I've
like what
seen
the
on
West
West End,
End,
yeah,
right?
yeah. I've seen Lion King. It's so good.
Uh, I would love to see Lion King, but every time it comes around, it's like $75 million to get a ticket. Right?
Yeah,
Is it
I
the
mean,
same in London for you?
it's quite expensive. I went a few years back, and I think it was a present, so I don't know how much it was. But again, we were right at the back because that's like
Yeah,
the cheaper seats, right? We're not going to get
sure.
right to the front. But yeah, no, it's the level of like staging and setting and everything that like the West End and Broadway,
Hmm.
the level that they go to, it's huge, and
Hmm.
it's just so it really just brings the magical of the animation to life, and it's like oh, so good.
I would love to know this as somebody that's grown up in New York versus somebody that's grown up in the UK.
Mhm.
Your musical theater dreams, are they the West End or are they Broadway or are they the one and the same to you?
Just to put me on a stage, any
Sure, but
stage.
like the
Um,
highest level for you, would that be, would you be like,
um,
oh my gosh, I want to play the West End or do the West End, or I want to, be, is like Broadway the dream? Like, because like for the
yeah,
people
yeah,
growing up around me, it would be Broadway, for sure.
yeah.
But like, I'm curious if like that holds the same weight to you, or if the West End holds your weight.
I mean, the West End is huge. Like, I would absolutely like the West End has always been the dream. And I think like because Broadway is somewhere else, it seems like it's like far away, I guess. So like West End for us, like it's like huge. It's everything that you've ever kind of wanted.
Hmm.
But having said that, I think Broadway is kind of like there. Do you know
Oh,
what I
is
mean?
that
So like
right?
it does go
Interesting.
probably above. But no, like West End has always been like the highlight.
Sure. I mean, I would agree with that very much in the sense of like Madison. Are you familiar with Madison Square Garden?
Yeah, yeah,
Like the concert venue? I think that there are much bigger venues and much more notable venues and much more, prettier venues. But like growing up in New York, like I want to play Madison Square Garden. Like yeah,
yeah.
you could play
Right.
like Dallas Stadium, which has 100,000 people, but like that's not as cool as playing Madison Square Garden, where
It
it's
doesn't
like
hold the same kind of like name and like
yeah, even though it's only like twenty thousand
feeling. Yeah,
people or something like that, right?
yeah,
It's very interesting. I love
brilliant.
that. I love that. So what do you do to like? So how do you, for somebody that is looking to get into musicals, like if somebody watching this, like how do you even start that? Where do you get the audition? Where did like from hey I want to be in a musical to being on the West End or being in any musical? What's that journey like?
I mean, every it's tricky because every person's journey is going
Of
to be different,
course,
right?
absolutely.
And like it's kind of about saying yes and just seeing where it takes you, I guess.
Okay,
You know, you wanna have that training, and like take as much, go to as many classes as you can, so that you have the kind of skills and like you can be growing them. And even like when you think like right, completed that term, right? There is more to learn. There's always something
sure.
more to learn. So I think like even when you're starting auditioning, you want to keep going to classes just to keep that kind of skill set going. Having an agent helps as well, having a good agent that
Mm,
you can talk to, because they're kind of they're there to open the doors and like here's like, whereas before it's kind of like no one really knows your name. So it's
very
like,
interesting.
how do you get in? Um, so yeah, having that person to kind of who knows other contacts is very handy as well.
Sure.
And then it's kind of like to contact casting directors and venues. That's always kind of like a good way to go about it, because then you are doing something and you are bringing your like CV or um, to them, and like to casting directors, to venues, and going from there really.
Have you noticed
Um,
any? Oh, I'm sorry.
no,
Do you
go
want to
for it.
continue?
No, I'm all good.
Have you noticed any benefits to growing your personal brand on YouTube? Like now that you have some quote unquote social clout, right? Like have you noticed any benefits in that? Like does it carry a little bit more weight or not
I
yet?
mean, I think it's definitely like a kind of um like something to talk about. So when people
Sure.
mention like it does get brought up in conversation. As of yet, like it's quite. I've always wanted to do YouTube because I like it. Like we said
Cool.
before, like you want to do it because you want to do it
Sure.
first and foremost. Then as the numbers start growing, you're like, this could be a way as well that someone who is, just on YouTube going, la la la, Jen looks cool. Let's go and audition her. You never know. Anyone could be watching
Absolutely.
anytime and like something could happen. So then that was in my mind, like, this is a good way. I'm keeping active. That could also be a route in. Um, as of yet, we're still waiting. But
I
yeah, no,
hear that.
it's definitely, I think, the fact that you messaged me as well, like, this is really exciting. Like, people do start seeing the number and seeing, like, you start popping up in more
Yeah.
places, I guess. So it's definitely a benefit, right?
You know what I think would be a really cool idea for you, and I hope you don't mind me sharing an idea.
Go for it.
I think you would be great at doing musical theater style interviews, where like you do exactly what you and I are doing right now, but just
Yeah.
interview all these people involved in musical theater to whatever capacity. And then, but the
Yeah.
benefit is now they know your name, and now they know that you are interested in musical theater and you are an actress yourself, right? And
Very
I
true.
think that would be because like who's interviewing these casting directors? Like nobody.
Hmm.
But like they
Yeah.
hold a really important role. So I'm sure
Yeah.
they'd be honored if you like reached out to them and was like, "Hey, I have this YouTube channel. I talk about music and musical theater and all this stuff, vocals and stuff. I'd be really interested to just talk to you about your role and the involvement of the musical." And now they know your name though. Like it's another foot in the door. And then if a
Yeah.
year from now an opportunity comes up where somebody else is looking for somebody and they say, "Oh, I know Jen. She'd probably be a good fit." Like it's just you. It's all
Yeah.
about
Yeah. Yeah.
relationships. I think that it'd be
You're
really
trying to get me to
interesting.
say thank you to you, like, oh, thank
Oh,
you.
that is
That's right.
absolutely not the case. I
No.
just think that you do a really good job at that. I would love to see you do something like that.
Yeah, no, that's really, really. I'm gonna take that on board. I'm gonna put it in my little
You
planner
should. I think
and
that'd be
make
really
sure it's
cool.
written down. No, that's a great idea. Thank you so much. And like,
Absolutely.
it's something that I wouldn't have thought of at all. So having that there, that's really helpful. And like you said, like
Especially
it's
because you
it's
have the
finding.
background and the knowledge of it. Like if I
Yeah,
could start it like interviewing. I don't know anything about musical theater, so like what benefit would
yeah,
I like? What kind of questions would I ask them? Where like you could actually
yeah,
really go in depth and have like an actual musical theater conversation,
yeah.
which I think would be really cool. It'd be like a really cool niche for you.
Yeah, yeah, and like I talk about it all the time, so why not talk to casting
Exactly.
directors? That would be so cool. And
But
like,
anybody
and it's
involved, not just them,
yeah,
anybody.
anything musical theatre wise. No, that's a really good idea. And like you said, it's kind of like another, like opening another door for myself because I'm introducing myself to them, and then they've got my name in their brain. But
That's
no,
exactly right.
I will definitely write that down. Thank you so much.
Ah, of course, absolutely. So what are you doing right now to continue to? You mentioned that you're still taking classes. You mentioned,
Mhm.
like what is a Wednesday for you look like in continuing to. The reason I asked this, like I said, even in the beginning of the original message that I sent you,
Mhm.
I want to, there was no notebook or notepad or notes for me to follow when I first started my career, right? It was just like, hey,
Yeah.
I dropped out of college. I made no money. I was like, I want to be a musician. How do I do this, right? There was no, whatever the word. I'm looking to, having a brain fart on the word I'm looking for.
Happens to
But
me all the time.
so I myself set out to be like, you know what? I want to document my process. I want to create this like, handbook for musicians and like document, because I believe that one day, I'll have the success that I want. And I want to document how I got here. And not that, this Joe Schmo is going to be able to be like, okay, if I follow everything that Jacob Restituto did, I will be, it's like not how it works. But like, they can get ideas, or they can be like, oh, I would have never thought of that, or oh wow, they see how hard it worked and wasn't just like whatever. So the reason I'm asking is I would love to hear like what are some things that you just doing like on a day to day to continue to like even in the micro, not
Mhm.
just oh I'm going to vocal lessons, oh I'm taking master classes, like I am DMing this or I'm watching this so I could do that, like
Got
just
you. Yeah. I mean, it's like I feel like I'm doing a lot.
sure.
So because I'm doing a lot, it's kind of like you've normalized it. So it's like, God, I'm gonna definitely miss something out that I do. That I'm like, yeah, everyone does
Sure,
that,
that's a
right?
great
Do
point.
you know what I mean? That's
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
kind of it's and I think I get stuck in that little like kind of world a lot. And I'm like, but don't aren't you doing this? But oh, let me try and think. It's funny that you mentioned Wednesdays as well. Wednesdays are the days that I don't teach, so I'm like, it's my day off. But no, I normally I oof, to get ideas of like I guess like content and um, reactions or whatever. I'll like I said, I'm a writer, so I like writing things down. So I'll take like a few like an hour or something a day trying to like just get everything kind of started, write little things, any notes that come into my mind. I also like to like free write in the morning because that helps
Oh,
to just
oh,
like write
sure.
like offload whatever thoughts, and that probably seep into that kind of writing section. Um, I like to
Could we ever
film,
see
like,
you writing? And I want to continue this section. Like, I'm not
mhm.
going to forget this question, but could we ever see you writing your own musical?
Do you know what? I was in the shower the other day and I was like, "Dang," I had a little something in my head. I was like, quick, I need to like record it because I was like, oh, this sounds like a really cool. And it was kind of going towards a more musical kind of thing. I'm a big fan of country, so I've written some like country tunes. But this was like, this sounds very musical theatre, like very distinctive, that sort of style. So I was like, oh, very interesting. And I did
Well,
actually
because you
set
say you
myself
love
the task.
writing, so
Yeah.
I'm curious, and you love musical theater, so I was like, I'm curious if you'd be interested in writing musical
Well,
theater.
that's why I started the writing because I wanted to get better at writing my own things. And I
Mm-hmm.
was like, what do I write about? And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
try this. And I was like, okay. At the very start, it was just lots of blah blah, like trying to. I was like, what am I meant to just write anything
Yeah.
that's coming to your head? And when you're thinking too much, it's like nothing, nothing.
Yeah, yeah,
And then suddenly
sure.
things start,
Yes.
yeah. Then suddenly things start coming. And you're like, oh, okay, this is a cool idea. Let's see where it takes us. But yeah, that's something that I kind of do put time in and like try and
Sure.
get a little bit of that done during the day.
You had just
I'm
mentioned recording. Sorry, going back to the other question, so I can.
recording.
Yeah, I
Oh,
think you
let me
didn't
see what I
you.
was thinking about recording.
I'm sorry, I shouldn't have interrupted with
No, no,
that other
no,
question,
no.
but I
It's
was
good.
curious
Like
about that.
my brain is exactly the same, which is why I'm like, oh, what did I say?
Ah,
I
that's
like
all
can't
right.
remember. Um, but yeah, like just typical things during my day. Is that what we were saying? Like
Sure.
what else kind of along my day? Well, to go when I've got an idea for like a cover that I want to record and like start working on that, I do prefer recording my covers live just because I guess the musical theatre in me is like, you've got one take, go.
Yeah.
Like it's live. But then obviously sometimes I'm like, let me record it and then I'll do something after.
Sure.
But I do always like to record my vocals over the top of like mark it through, just like really section off the songs and work through the songs. So not only am I doing that in my lessons with students, like breaking up the songs and giving them exercises, I very much do that on my own as well. Like I'll
Hmm.
spend, however long it takes a day when I'm focusing on a song to break that down. I was actually, I think I mentioned, this morning I had a few songs to learn for a self tape. So I was there like making all these weird noises in the flat, like I'm not gonna do it now. It's gonna hurt people with headphone users. But yeah, making all like weird sounds, warming up the voice. I want to get better with yoga because yoga's very good for singing. But yeah, all of these things just to keep me kind of active and then allow myself to also not be active. Like, having that kind of rest time is very
Mm-hmm.
important as well, which I need to keep reminding myself because I'm very much like
Yeah,
do everything now kind of person. But yeah, finding that time to rest is definitely important. Find that balance,
absolutely.
to keep working.
You mentioned that your boyfriend is a musician as well. Do you guys ever collaborate on anything, or do you guys keep your creative endeavors separate?
I want to collab way more than he lets than he allows. No, we are working on a little album together. We've got one song out actually, a little demo,
Very cool.
together. But he himself, the Kid and I music. Oh my God, he's gonna be really proud that I said that. We're really happy that I plugged him. But no, he writes his own stuff and he is in the process of finding a band because at the moment
Cool.
it's his ideas. Like, he's written everything. He's got like worth 4, 5 albums now, but he wants to obviously get the band to try and start playing live with the band and
Sure.
everything rather than just him. But collaboration wise, yeah, I think we have one song out and I a cappella we spoke about earlier, right? I love adding harmonies. So even on his like solo songs, I'm there
Hmm.
just adding some harmonies along. Like
Oh, I
this
love
could be
that.
really good. Do you want me to be included? No, I'm like, okay. I'll sit out.
That's too funny. I love that. That's great.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's a very musical household.
Sure, that's phenomenal. I love that. Well,
Mm.
I want to be respectful of your time, and I want to say thank you very much for taking the time to chat. It's been an absolute pleasure. And I want to
Yeah,
recommend that everybody, if you're not familiar with her channel, to go check out her channel. My
yeah.
last question for you is, I love asking this to everybody as a last question. What is one thing that you know now that you wish you knew in the beginning of your career, whether that be YouTube, whether that be musical theater? What is one thing you know now that you wish you knew earlier?
Oh goodness. Oh, so many things.
Spit them
Um,
out then. Let's just do
Spit
rapid
them
fire.
out. No, I think you just said my brain does not work like this. I have to think. No, but I think one thing in particular that I still learning to kind of listen to a bit more now as well is that mistakes are fine. They're not going to like stop things for you, and they're not gonna end a career or something. Like
Mm,
mistakes are part of you, and you're gonna learn from them
sure.
because like I very much like I said, like still kind of now I think I've grown a little bit from it, but like I'm a perfectionist, right? I want to try and get everything right first go or like make sure everything's right, and if it's not I'm like no, but that's fine. Like you are human, you are
Yeah.
allowed to make mistakes, and I think that's something that I wish I told my younger self because there are so many
Mm,
times where I really took out myself and I was like, oh no, like you should have, why? You're meant to be really good, or like, why have you done this? But actually take a moment, look at what you have actually done. I always say, especially to my students now, I'm like, I know you're focusing on the negatives right now of how that performance went, or, you know, we do focus on the negatives, unfortunately. But I want you to look in the mirror and tell yourself three things that you really
mm.
did like
I
about
love
it.
that.
So, acknowledge the negatives,
Yeah.
right? We'll learn and we'll get better, put them to side. But then actually there are so many good things that happen. So focus on that because that's more important. It's going to
That's
help you
great.
grow.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's phenomenal. Well, it has been an absolute pleasure. I want to say thank you so much. If you could hang out for 30
Thank
more
you.
seconds, I want to say thank you so much to every single person that watched these videos or listened to the podcast. You guys are the best. I appreciate you. Consider subscribing to the channel or, however you do that on a podcast, whatever that means, following the podcast. But thank you so much. Hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. The best way to support my channel is to check out my original music, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Have a great day. God bless and peace out.